What is Marxism? Marxism is an economic and political theory that examines the flaws inherent in capitalism and seeks to identify an alternative. These flaws include the class struggle between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, the capitalist and the workers, and believes that the resolution is a communist and socialist revolution where the proletariat takes control. Marxism believes in a transitional period between capitalism and communism called socialism, which is another economic system altogether. There are many other flaws of capitalism pointed out by Marx in his largest piece of writing, Das Kapital, one of the many writings of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, which dictate the school of thought. This includes the Communist Manifesto as well. The way that these philosophers identify and distinguish socialism and communism can be quite difficult, but the best way to explain it is this. Socialism is each according to his ability, to each according to his work, and communism is each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Under socialism, the people get paid according to the quality and the quantity of the commodities that they produce, and under communism, people put in the work they can and take out what they need. It is important to note that communism has never been achieved, and that socialism differs depending on where it is applied, which is why socialism in the USSR is different from Vietnam, Cuba, and China. Often under socialism, healthcare, education, housing, and more are given to the people as socialism is introduced, and this is why socialist nations people get paid much less, because there is no need to pay for these things, which often cost people under capitalism a large portion of their paycheck. And there is sometimes even a democratic workplace, where the workers elect their boss, and automation is often more common, but instead of unemployment, lower working hours and better working conditions are introduced. It is also very important to note Marx and Engels were heavily theoretical, and Marxism has been adapted throughout history, which is why tomorrow I will be explaining Leninism, which originates from Marxism. So subscribe and check out that video tomorrow. Leninism is certainly an interesting philosophy and ideology, and in order to explain this political theory, explaining the history of Vladimir Lenin is not only heavily important, but required. Lenin was a Russian revolutionary, politician, and political theorist. He served as the first and founding head of the government of the Soviet Russia from 1917 to 1924. And of the Soviet Union from 1922 to 1924. Lenin pointed out the flaws within the government that took place after the first revolution, and did not appreciate the provisional government that had taken control, and believed that they were similar to the Tsar, which was what the revolution set out to remove. He was exiled to Switzerland, but was snuck back into Russia and began another revolution there, now known as the October Revolution, which kick-started Soviet Russia and the Soviet Union. To understand his ideas, you should understand his experience. Lenin's brother was executed by the Tsar's guards for his revolutionary involvement, and this is most likely what shaped Lenin's views early on. Lenin was also a fan of the works written by Marx and Engels. He also had seen the conditions of the Russian workers and had seen Bloody Sunday, when hundreds of innocent peaceful protesters were killed by the Tsar's guards, which had sparked the revolution and begun the provisional government. This sparked his revolutionary politics and spirit, and is what inspired his theories. By the way, before I get into the explanation of the ideology, I should mention that after Lenin took control, he killed the Tsar and all successors to ensure that it would never be returned to Russia, even if the Soviet Union fell. Leninism, by definition, is a continuation of Marxism, which believes in the transition from capitalism to socialism and to eventually achieve communism. Lenin believed that after the Bolshevik-led communist revolution, a vanguard party would need to take control to institute a dictatorship of the proletariat. This is one of the primary aspects of Leninism, so it's important that this is understood. A proletarian dictatorship isn't as scary as it sounds. In reality, it boils down to a vanguard party that rules the country, which aims to enforce laws and policies which are beneficial to the workers of a particular nation. So this is really the main difference between Marxism and Leninism. As mentioned, Marx and Engels were heavily theoretical and their philosophy had not been attempted before. But Lenin was set out to change that, and as a Marxist, he wanted to apply those theoretical principles within reality of the time and area. So hopefully that explains what Leninism is and explains its difference. And if you are interested in learning about Maoism, which originates from Marxism-Leninism, then subscribe and check out that video tomorrow. Mao Zedong, deadliest dictator of all time. Let's see what his political theory was and how it's separate from Marxism-Leninism. If you don't know what Marxism and Leninism mean, you might want to check out the videos I have made previously about the two different ideologies. But for a brief overview, Marxism believes in human evolution past capitalism into communism by first transitioning through socialism. And Leninism believes that a vanguard party would be required to form a dictatorship of the proletariat, where the people rule over the people. This is actually seen today in the Communist Party of China. Leninism is an updated form of Marxism applied to the conditions and time when Lenin was around, and Maoism can be seen as an updated form of that. So what is the real difference? Well, when Marx and Engels were writing, the Industrial Revolution had taken place, and a lot of the work people did was in the factories. Therefore, the working class was heavily industrial, which is why the literature is focused on all of that. But the conditions were very different in Lenin's Russia and in Mao's China, so they had to adapt. Mao was a Marxist-Leninist, but unlike Lenin, the people Mao needed for his civil war and revolution were farmers, which at the time in China were heavily exploited and heavily uneducated. Which is why Mao's writings are very easy to understand without sacrificing wisdom, because they were intended for the farmers at the time. Mao was quite controversial in his time in power. The main critiques of Mao are the Great Leap Forward and the murder of many landlords, among other controversial acts. This is because Mao wanted to establish China and propel it into the future as a socialist power. This caused trouble between Mao and Stalin later, as they both wanted to be the leader of the socialist world. But what is Maoism? Well, this is often debated among socialists in the left-wing community, but can be identified as an updated form of Marxism-Leninism, which strives for revolutionary mass mobilization and the use of rural workers for revolution. It includes the Marxist belief of socialism to communism transition and the Leninist belief of a vanguard party that directly serves the people, and endorses revolution as a necessity for the movement, but adapts Marxism-Leninism to work in China at the time, and strives for a large advancement of a nation to establish the movement. But Maoism is adapted all across the global south and the third world, with little differences made to the original beliefs of Mao, but hopefully that somewhat explains it. Stalin was mentioned here in this video, and if you're interested in learning more about Stalinism, then subscribe for that video tomorrow. Joseph Stalin, the man of steel, the Georgian leader of the USSR, who is considered by many as someone who can be compared to Adolf Hitler. But what was Stalin's beliefs, and what really is Stalinism? Well, to understand that, we must understand who Joseph Stalin was. Well, Uncle Joe, as he's known, led the Soviet Union from 1924 until his death in 1953, establishing the nation as the second most powerful in the world before he had died, even though early on, Stalin had to deal with many famines all across the Soviet republics, especially in Ukraine. The USSR had also been severely destroyed after the Second World War, and Stalin would need to deal with the decades-long Cold War where he'd engage in proxy warfare with the United States of America. Yet he is considered very controversial and authoritarian, and had fallen out with many socialist leaders at the time. This list included Mao Zedong, who wanted to overtake Stalin's leadership and authority, Josip Broz Tito, who Stalin tried to assassinate multiple times, Leon Trotsky, who Stalin successfully assassinated, and the president of Mongolia, who had slapped Stalin in the face. So it's safe to say that he isn't very popular among certain communities and people. But what really was his belief, and how does it differ from Marxism, Leninism, and other socialist ideologies? Stalinism is often defined as a totalitarian, economically far-left ideology. It believes in rapid industrialization, socialist commodity production, a totalitarian state, and collectivization of agriculture. So that's pretty much it, but definitely let me know what you think about Joseph Stalin in the comments. Was he an evil totalitarian dictator, or was his means justified if it meant the USSR became as powerful as it did? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for my video tomorrow on Leon Trotsky and Trotskyism. I hope you have enjoyed my videos on Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, and Stalinism so far, and if you haven't checked out those videos, definitely do after this. So who was Leon Trotsky? What were his beliefs, and why was he eventually murdered for it? Leon Trotsky was a Russian revolutionary, political theorist, and politician. Trotsky was influenced by the ideas of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, as well as Vladimir Lenin. After the October Revolution, Trotsky was a major leader of the revolution and contributed greatly to leading the Petrograd Soviet. During the Russian Civil War, Trotsky was a major leader of the Red Army. When Joseph Stalin came to power in 1924, Trotsky was exiled from the USSR and formed the Fourth International with other Trotskyists. He was then assassinated by Stalin's men, but his beliefs and ideology lived on. So what is Trotskyism all about then? Trotskyism's main belief is the permanent revolution, which is the belief that the complete victory of the bourgeois democratic revolution in Russia is conceivable only if the form of the dictatorship of the proletariat, leaning on the peasantry. The democratic revolution grows over directly into the socialist revolution and thereby becomes a permanent revolution. So it is pretty similar to Leninism, with a few changes made and a few advancements as well. And that's pretty much all of it. Check out my videos and subscribe for my video tomorrow on Tito. I've talked about Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, Stalinism, and Trotskyism before, so definitely check out those videos after this. Anyway, Josip Broz Tito, the man too tough for Stalin. Tito was a very well-loved man, so it's no wonder Titoism is so popular today. So what is Titoism all about, and who was this great man? Josip Broz Tito was a Croatian communist revolutionary who rose to power in the 1940s when he relentlessly fought against Nazi imperialists and their collaborators. He was able to gain enough support and lead Yugoslavia until his death in 1980. He was able to play both sides during the Cold War and keep Yugoslavia out of conflict. But this doesn't mean that everyone loved him. In fact, Stalin absolutely hated him and tried to assassinate him multiple times until Tito sent him a very interesting note. It read, "Stop sending people to kill me. We've already captured 5 of them. One with a rifle and another with a bomb. If you don't stop sending killers, I'll send a very fast-working one to Moscow, and I certainly won't have to send another." I guess Stalin was really against his independence from the other Eastern Bloc nations. So how did Tito's beliefs differ from Stalin's? Titoism is an authoritarian and market socialist ideology. It believes in uniting ethnic and religious identities and a unified national identity as well. So it's quite different from some of the other ideologies that I've talked about so far. So definitely subscribe for more daily videos about politics, ideologies, and more.